My name is Richard T. Scott. I'm a classical painter gone rogue. Now, I'm leaving the studio to search for artists who color outside the lines. I'll be your guide on this odyssey to answer the eternal question, what is art? When we commune with nature from day to day, we cannot help but notice that life is ever changing. In our human need for simplicity, we may not see it immediately. We may fight against it. We may fear it. But existence is transformation. The pupa becomes the moth. The lush green forest becomes a sculptural expanse of skeletal limbs. And though in our climate-controlled bubbles, we create buffers against the vicissitudes of the universe, we are temporary as well. Even our current perspective will be as different a year from now as it was a year before. We must accept change. In fact, we must embrace transformation to move forward, to heal, to grow. This is what draws me to Melora's work. She manages that rare feat of simultaneously exploring both the personal and the universal. Looking through her own unique lens, she reveals vivid glimpses into the broader human experience. Reaching for societal change, she observes her own transcendental experience.
Thank you so much for having me over. I saw your work online after a mutual friend of ours introduced me to it, and your paintings are fabulous.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to hear more about them. Tell me a little bit about what drew you to being an artist and your path from there to here.
Well, my mom studied art history in college, and my grandparents were enthusiastic art collectors, viewers, supporters. It was really important to them. I was really lucky to grow up in that kind of an atmosphere. And it was just always my favorite subject in school. And then I would come home and draw and make things. And my parents were very supportive, so I would go to summer programs in high school and, life drawing classes. It was just sort of one of those things that has just been running through my life forever. I always kind of knew that I really wanted to be an artist. Yeah.
I'm curious how you orient your creative process,
Well, in high school, I did photography. I had a great photo teacher. And so that's how I got into art school. But I also did printmaking, and I did sewing, and I actually took beginning painting like 3 times because I thought it was so hard. I just did think I still need to learn, and I guess I still feel the same way. I feel like I'm just about to get it,
Yes.
I
know the feeling.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's partly what keeps me painting, but I do like to do sculpture just because it makes me think in a different way. And I like the way that feeds painting, as far as the 3-dimensionality. Mm-hmm. I like the thinking with the hands. Painting, is sometimes so mental. Not that sculpture doesn't make me exhausted, because you're always drawing from art history, and
right.
Every stroke means something and is referring to something else. And I love that.
Yes. But it's a lot to juggle, and sometimes it's nice to focus on one thing. Like a sculpture, you're focusing on the volume and the forms, and it's a different type of composition, a different type
of thought.
Where did you study?
I studied at the Art Institute of Chicago, and then I took my junior year abroad. I was in Florence, and I met these 2 amazing teachers. I guess I would call them my mentors as well. and they really taught me how to paint from life, the face and what I saw in front of me, which is what I really was wanting. They were huge in forming me as a young artist.
It's such a magical place.
Oh yeah, and the history. I stayed for 1.5 years. I mean, that was such a huge foundation because I had such a hard time with American history in high school. You know, I hated history.
Yeah, me too.
It's just like all reading about these men. But then going to Florence, it's like in the walls, it's everywhere. And then you understand it in a whole way, and how the architecture and literature and art and everything, you know, comes together to form some other understandings.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. It wasn't until I lived in Paris for 3 years that I started to think about American history and my own heritage and my sense of identity that I've constructed over time. And in some ways you had to have an outside perspective to look back on it, to fit it into place. I found history boring in school as well.
Yeah.
But now I'm fascinated with it throughout my work, just like it is with yours.
Right, exactly, yeah. I mean, it's totally great. History is amazing. It's like all time is happening at once. The things that happened in the past are with us in the present and inform what's going on now.
Was there a pivotal moment in your life and career that explains how you came to where you are?
I guess there's a few. The first one would be the death of my father when I was 21.
That's early. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it was an accident, so it was very sudden and shocking. But I think, you know, the silver lining to that is that it made me aware that you gotta carpe diem, because you never know when you're gonna die. And it took a while before I actually put that into practice. I mean, I guess I was always sort of painting on the side, but doing, you know, whatever jobs, waitressing or painting houses or whatever. And then a friend told me when I was 27 about Saturn returns. And he was like, when you're 28, you know, if you get all your ducks in a row, the whole universe will give you a push for it. And I was like, all right, well, you know, I gotta give this a go. Like, can I support myself as a painter? And so I just decided to just do like a really strong schedule. I got a waitressing job that was really good, and I would go home like right after work and then wake up, work in the studio all day. And then I just started that and putting bodies of work together and approaching galleries, and it took time.
You have to focus on what's most important and what brings you happiness and fulfillment in life.
Yeah, and then you realize that your whole life has to be in support of painting.
It takes a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that's, you know, the decisive moment. And it's like, how do you want to spend your time? You know, what do you want to be doing?
Do you find painting to be kind of a meditative process?
Yeah, I find it's very meditative.
I'm kind of getting that, just the vibe from your work and from what I've heard you describe about it before.
It becomes such an awareness of your mind, basically, which I guess meditation is too, because you start to understand where your limitations are, or how you're limiting yourself, or yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes it's all about that. Every morning, you know, I wake up, I go for a bike ride, I do gardening if it's warm out, you know, then I get in the studio and write a little bit. I actually have been doing tiny meditations, and then I mix my colors, and then I start painting. I also think it's important what one chooses to work on, because the subject matter, what are you putting out into the world as far as your energy or your fury, or there are ways to transform those things in yourself as you work through them. That's what I'm concentrating on.
Well, I would really love to go see it and talk about it right, you know, face to face with the painting. If
okay,
you're
let's do it. Yeah, sounds great.
You were hinting at this piece when we were talking earlier. Just seeing it in person is really fantastic. It reminds me of this quote by Anais Nin, nature makes us for ourselves, not for others, to be and not to seem. It feels to me intuitively like you're getting at some sort of fundamental truth here. And related to that, I'm noticing you're using like the motif of the rape of the Sabine women, and in many places you've removed the male arms that are clasping the women.
Right. The title of this painting is called The Legacy of Disembodiment, and then the rape of the Sabine women is in quotes. So the idea of sexual trauma or any kind of trauma, I think that is such a baseline in our society. But to think of things that happen to you and how they affect you. So I lifted all the women up out of the rape scene and removed the places where the men were, their body parts, so the hands and the head, leaving the holes in the women, which is what happens in a rape situation. And I started making this painting like the day that the decision of Roe v. Wade was leaked. And I actually finished it the day that it was decided in the court, just random. But it took a long time to make. I had started on another painting before that was taking place in a Masonic lodge. So that's what was behind. I was just kind of sketching it out. You know, I had this canvas and that decision, and I was like, I'm just gonna go. This is what I need to concentrate on right now. So it was kind of divine intervention that I had the backdrop of this, you know, Christian man's organization.
Yeah, boys club.
Exactly. Symbol of patriarchy, I would say.
Very much intertwined with that. It works so well conceptually, but also aesthetically. One of the things I love about this piece in particular, and your work in general, is how you're able to take your conceptual framework and express it through compositional elements. I can't help but to want to kind of keep coming back through.
I had, you know, a good reference for the composition. I wish I could have said that that was mine, but it's that Baroque thing that creates that. I liked how the different elements happen just by layering of the hands crossed, or even the hole that that man's hand made, revealing his face.
Yes.
And then having the apples and the wine bottle at the bottom. And then the bottom was just like a weird thing that happened when I printed that out, is there was another painting underneath. But I think it refers to a tapestry, you know, so the natural world, which then talks about your quote. Trauma causes disembodiment, which I think also is a way of perpetuating the patriarchy, because then you're operating from a disembodied space.
Yeah.
And we all kind of are. You know, it takes a great amount of work to re-embody yourself. I mean, you know, we all have some kind of trauma, grief within us.
Creates a feedback loop that affects everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we're operating from different spaces, and perhaps we have like parts of our bodies missing. Yeah, I want to keep exploring that. You know, I have to say that it's at the end of the day, I am in a place of the unknown and kind of going through blindly, but like sort of always kind of like stepping off the cliff. I guess that's when I feel like I'm having success in my own life, when I am truly reaching a place that I've been looking for.
Melora Kuhn speaks in the language of her materials. Her inventive choices of color and meditative relationship between shapes is more common in an abstract painter than a figurative one, which is one of the reasons her work feels so refreshing. It is both timeless and present in the now, drawing on American history, mythology, fairy tales, and following her intuitive compass, Melora leads us on a path less taken, weaving together the past seamlessly with the present and reminding us that we are not separate from history, but a continuation of it. Though she addresses some heavy issues, she manages to transform them into an expression of beauty. Her work is aware but not cynical. She does not lecture, she leads us to ask better questions. And I think this is one thing that great art does.